You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online, and my name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. Welcome to the show. The interview subject coming up for you is the one and only Bill Hudson. Bill, of course, is the guitarist in too many bands to mention, but here's a sample. NorthTale, Circle to Circle, Jon Oliva's Pain, I Am Morbid. There you go. That's actually how I got an introduction to him. My awareness was raised given he joined David Vincent, one of the greatest death metal frontmen of all time, in I Am Morbid. Trans-Siberian Orchestra is one of the other acts, as is former Accept frontman Udo Dirkschneider, so he's a very busy fella. He's not in all of those bands right now, I should say. Only a few of them, but do check out his resume if you're interested. Bill's an impressive fella, and I enjoy talking to him, as you will hear throughout the episode. Now, the catalyst is because ESP Guitars USA, they've posted on their official YouTube channel a demo video with Bill playing an instrumental arrangement of Welcome to Paradise, which is the title track from the 2019 release by his band NorthTale. So here he is, Mr. Bill Hudson.
Hey mate, how's things?
Hey man,
What's been happening, mate? You're back in Florida.
yeah. Hey, should we be doing this with video?
I'm on video now, but that's only just so that you can see me, and it's no
But on
dramas.
on your show, do you show the video or not?
No, I don't. No,
No. Okay, so
it's just a
I'll
podcast.
just do audio then, because I look like shit right now.
I don't look much better, believe me. I've just been out for my walk and taken the kids to school and all the rest of it. So I got my Dr. Pepper here, if you can see it. You know, that's about the hardest drink that I drink. You know, but mate, yeah, the United States. I mean, I know, we're not here to talk about politics, but holy shit, you know, it's got this. You know, you got an old man president in there these days who likes sniffing little girls' hair, and you've got bullhorn hat wearing weirdos storming the Capitol. So, were you tempted to stay in Brazil before coming back to Florida?
Well, to be honest, yeah. I mean, when I was out there, I went. Well, first of all, I just went there to record our new singer, because he's from Brazil.
Hmm.
And with the pandemic and all, I'm able to travel because I'm a naturalized citizen, but he's not. So, and plus, you know, we have access to a great studio there. So I just went there, and you know, initially just to do this recording, and then I was like, what the fuck? I'm here, you know, I have my family here. I'm not really super busy, except for recording the album.
Hmm.
I'm not playing shows, and I did have a buddy of mine watching my house for me because of my animals, you know. So I
Yep.
just decided to stay a little bit longer, and when the whole
All I think that's happening is this the gloss, you know, the bullshit, in other words, is just being stripped away, and we can actually see the political process there for what it is, which is, it's just a load of shit. It's just a bunch of billionaires and multi-millionaires vying for the throne. And like with Kamala Harris, who got like less than 3% of the Democratic primaries, to now be in a position where she will be the president, because I don't think Biden's going to last the full 4 years.
yeah.
You can see that the people are being fucked over. They didn't vote for her. You got a bunch of ma and pa kettle types who voted for a centrist, and they're going to get basically a quasi-Marxist fairly soon. And it's not good, man. But I mean, as I say, it's just a stripping away of all of the bullshit and exposing this so-called democratic process for what it is.
I think that that's the issue that's happening all over the world. Really, that's I haven't seen a whole lot of people talk about this, but I think the root of all the issues that we're having is the fact that now everybody has access to all the information about everything.
Mm.
So, I mean, in music, that's happening. You know, like one thing that older guys cannot accept is the death of the rock star, the death of the mysterious person, because now it's everyone on Twitter and all that, and every fan knows how it's done and all that. Well, that happens everywhere. People know how politics are. People know how full of shit politicians are. People know how full of shit sports people are.
Yes.
You know,
Right.
it's like, it's like, I mean, the other day, like of course, as a musician, I think about music more than anything,
Mm.
But like, a band like Motley Crue in today's market, and I'm not only talking about the politically correct thing, I'm talking about the fact that everyone has access to everything. So Motley Crue wouldn't be very shocking today, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
People would like watch their YouTube videos and be like, oh man, those costumes are ugly. And, like, there's this sort of access to information for everyone at all times right now that I think the world is just not ready to handle. It's just
Yeah.
everywhere. This is happening everywhere.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, yeah, you're on point because it's definitely been in our lifetimes. I'm 42, and I grew up without social media, obviously, and we've seen its introduction, and I think it was when Trump got in that we've seen the volume of information that's spread that is just wrong. It's just bullshit, and opinions expressed as facts. And of course, if you disagree with these so-called facts, then you're called either a racist or a Nazi or whatever. Insert epithet here, sort of thing. And we grew up in a time where, in my family, for example, my mother's family, most of the people are lefties, right? But they're not woke. They're just like typical mainstream lefties sort of thing. And you could have a barbecue with them, and politics wouldn't even come up. These days, I get the feeling that if you hang out with someone who has a different political opinion than you, and they can be from your deep past as well, um, that's the first thing that's brought up, is that you have a different opinion to them, and why, haven't you seen the light yet? This sort of thing. And it's just nuts. And I do think, to your point, it is social media and the rate of disinformation, the spread of it, that is causing this stuff. And people just haven't been taught. They just don't know how to think critically. And I don't know whether we ever did, man. I just and talk about the rock star thing. I was just reading about Marilyn Manson. I mean, man, any of these assholes. So I don't like Manson at all. I went to his concert once, 25 years ago or something. He put on a good show. It was a bit different for back then when Nirvana and Pearl Jam were busy looking at their shoes on stage. But that's the only reason why it stood out. I mean, all these assholes, even I don't even know how Motley Crue haven't been cancelled, man. I mean, I'm only using the lefties and the way that they do things. And some of these guys like Manson, if any of this shit is true that is coming out about him, he deserves, man, to lose everything. Because that guy's a massive drug head, alcoholic, allegedly. Even there's video footage of him out here in Australia on stage. It looks like he's sniffing some powder and it's going everywhere on stage, and he doesn't even realise it.
Oh, I didn't actually see a whole lot of that. I know about the story, kind of, but I didn't see a whole lot. But yeah, I mean, that's what I mean, man. That shit wouldn't happen, I mean, it's just a matter of time before someone tries to
Mm.
do that with Tommy Lee and something comes out. I don't know, man.
No, I
It's
agree.
weird.
Yeah, but it's guys like you who don't drink. You're focused on your career. You're actually doing it. I listened to a podcast with you last night. Who was it with? Some riff people or something. I can't remember. It was on Spotify, and I don't use Spotify that often, but it was a podcast where you were talking about you've used COVID to actually become better on the guitar. And I thought, if anybody was going to use COVID to their advantage, mate, it was you. Judging by the way
Oh,
you've
dude.
you've approached your career to date, man, and all these other fucking rock star types who don't understand that, mate, if you put in the hard work, you get the just rewards, man. So, yeah, I mean, just on that alone, man, congratulations for taking it so, your craft so seriously, and for avoiding the pitfalls, as we say, like, not that I think you would get involved in any of the shit that Manson is, but even the drinking game and all the rest of it, it's just not part of who you are, man.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, man. I had my drinking times. I was a really serious alcoholic for 10 years and completely out of control for 3. Like completely out of control, meaning my life was ruined,
Hmm.
and I had no choice but to stop drinking. That was in 2012. When I stopped, I
Hmm.
stopped in 2012, and I haven't had a drop since. And yeah, I mean, I also, with being sober, there was also an awareness that I wasn't the best guitar player in the world, because that's kind of what I thought at the time. Like I didn't. I was always like, oh, I'm so good. I don't even, I don't even have to practice and all that. So with sobriety, the awareness that I was really bad at what I do also came. I was like, oh, I'm just good at bullshitting people, and I decided to just become good. Just become as good as I used to tell people I was, and I did see improvement. Because I always, especially people my age, man. I hear a lot of, oh, I haven't really practiced guitar. I haven't practiced since '98. I hear shit like that, and I used to say stuff like that too. And then I went back to practicing, and I realized, well, I'm more mature now. I'm actually practicing. Like there were several different vices that I used to have from when I was young, things about my picking, things about the way I finger notes and stuff that I just kept blowing off. I was like, whatever, nobody will ever notice this. And I started focusing on those little things, and I'm a different kind of player now. And I'm sitting, honestly, like the reason I was a little late here is because I've been recording the solos for my new album, my band NorthTale. And I mean, it's night and day, the difference between how I play now versus how I played back then. Like I'm doing things at higher tempos, at tempos that I didn't think I could do before. Dude, I am a very anxious person. I with food, with weed, with alcohol back when I drank, whatever it is, I always want to do a lot of. You know what I mean? So I realizing that I kind of did that to guitar. I guess is a good way to put it. So it's it didn't really feel like something I had to be disciplined about. It doesn't. Like right now, I'm still doing it. It doesn't really feel like I have to be disciplined about it. It doesn't feel like work. There's nothing I would rather be doing. So I wouldn't rather be hanging out with anyone. I like being home playing guitar and writing music. You know what I mean? So even even like, because okay, most of my year I spend doing shows, being on tour, and then being on the pandemic, I started asking myself, I'm like, okay, so what's so different? Because if I was out doing a tour, what would I do during the day? Nothing. I would fuck around. You know what I mean? Fucking go hang out with someone I know from town, or maybe I'll take some guitar students. Maybe I'll do a guitar clinic. But for the most part, during the day, there's not much that I'm doing. So I'm like, the pandemic hasn't really changed shit. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yep.
It's just that I'm not traveling and playing an hour a night. So that's kind of a waste of my day. I need to start doing better things with it.
The other thing too, mate, with the pandemic, this is the most obvious thing. And a musician like you, I assume that you make most of your income from touring and actually being up on stage. So,
well, the past 3 or 4 years, all of it.
so, I mean, this is the problem, mate, with this bloody vaccine, which hasn't been scientifically tested, by the way. I don't know whether it's going to work. I mean, if it hasn't been scientifically tested, which has to happen over sometimes 7 to 15 years, that's normally the gestation period for a vaccine. So we don't know how effective as the general populace this thing is going to actually be. What I'm saying effectively is that the last, I can't remember what podcast I was listening to, sorry, so I can't cite the source, but someone was saying that we're probably going to be in these sort of on and off lockdowns for the next 5 years, which means no concerts, bars can't open, this sort of thing, mate. So, if you weren't able to play in the immediate future, how do you think you'd procure an income?
Well, right now I went back to teaching guitar, and I'm doing it pretty much full time, or as full as I can get my schedule. Because also everyone else is doing the same thing. But that's been my main thing. I have my investments too.
Nice. Yep.
I'm sort of active in the stock market, but I mean, I wouldn't call that my income. It's just extra money.
Yeah.
So basically for the last year I taught guitar, and I got a grant like for musicians here in the States, but that was
Nice.
a joke,
Oh, right, really?
and
Not
that's it.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't very much. It might have been $1,000, and
Mm.
but that's been the thing. That's been the and for the I mean, we do have an Am Morbid tour coming up,
Hmm.
as well as a tour for my own band NorthTale. Uh, I don't know that they're gonna happen, but assuming that they do, then I have about 40 shows booked for this year already,
Nice.
which is a great way to come back.
Mm.
But who knows if that's gonna happen?
Yeah, we just don't know. There's just you can't bank on anything at the moment, and that's the issue. But at least you've got a very strong reputation as a world-class guitarist, and if you do put your name out there for lessons, you're gonna get some responses that way, So at least I mean, for me, I'm a musician too, and I haven't played since January of last year. There's just no bars open that are taking musicians. Like, there's no bands playing in bars.
Uh, yeah, well, see, here in Florida, we do have bands playing bars and stuff like that, and it's
Mm.
crazy. One of my friends is playing, God, I don't know, 6 times a week, 6 times a week.
Holy shit.
He played with a, yeah, he played with a cover band 5 or 6 times a week, like nothing's happening. I'm like, dude, are you trying to get sick? And, I guess he doesn't really believe the virus like a lot of people here.
Yeah, well, the virus,
And,
virus is real. It's just whether or not the lockdowns work because they're economically catastrophic. That's the issue,
yeah,
you know.
obviously. But at the same time, like these people are getting together and all on top of each other around here in Florida. It's like
Mm.
nothing is happening, and we have these numbers. I don't know, man. Me, since I can't play shows, I just hide from everyone at home. I just play safe.
Are you noticing there's been a bit of I wouldn't say an influx, but have you noticed that there's been some people from other states move into Florida? Because I'm hearing that's happening. They're coming from California and New York mainly, I think.
Yeah, there's a lot of people coming out here. There's people going to Texas a lot. That's a big destination right now.
Mm.
I hear South Carolina, just cheaper places. Um,
Mm.
but I mean, it's rather funny to me because, like, I mean, it had to end somehow. You know what I mean? I left California in 2016, and it was super expensive to live there then, and it's a lot worse now. Like at some point, people needed to get the fuck up.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's happening in New York too now. No, New York is fucked for what I know. I don't know if I haven't been there, but I just keep hearing that New York is completely fucked, even
Well,
from people that live there.
well, it's a fact that the hospitality businesses, a lot of them can't open. And
Yeah.
when people can't go and have a coffee somewhere and just sit down and feel human, man, that's a bad thing, man. That's not good. I don't know. I'm not saying I have the solutions here, but I know people live on top. I've been to Manhattan, so I mean it's like 20 Sydneys rolled into one, in terms of the size of the bloody place. Um, but
Yeah.
but people living on top of each other, I know they've got to be careful there, but there's got to be other options so as though people can sort of see their life. As I say, if the pandemic lasts beyond the next 5 years or so, and you've got a job in
Yeah.
hospitality, how the hell are you going to work? Like, if you wait tables, right, and you can't wait tables because restaurants aren't open, how the hell do you find a job? What do you do? Go and learn how to code? That's the joke online, I notice these days, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah, but I mean, I do. There's I was talking about the stock market. There's quite a few people starting to dabble on it, which is terrible because it's not, like 90% of people lose money on doing that. So
Hmm. Yeah.
I don't know. I honestly don't know, man. We're fucked. Is what I just keep saying that we're fucked.
For the foreseeable future. But look, I'll switch gears and I'll ask you about NorthTale because I know you're working with Dennis Ward, who's also a musician, and I figured for someone like yourself, you'd have to work with someone who had some intimate technical understanding of what they're doing, not just some professional understanding of what you guys are doing. But I know he's worked with Gus G, and I've had a chat to Gus, he reminds me of you, mate. To be honest, he's a tremendous guy, you know. But Dennis Ward, mate, did you guys know each other beforehand? Can you tell me how you actually got the introduction to him?
Yeah, absolutely. So Dennis, first of all, I've been a fan of his work for a long time because Dennis has produced some of the top power metal albums of the like 90s and early 2000s. He also was he's a terrific composer and a musician in the band Pinker 69, which I really, really was a fan of as a kid. And then, to top it all off, basically everything that Michael Kiske did outside of Halloween when he wasn't in the band, Dennis did it. You know, he either was in the band or produced. So it's almost like Dennis is the guy that like he knows what exactly I'm trying to do. You know, he has worked with the bands that we're trying to be like. So that was the thinking. But for this album, we actually were gonna self-produce again. You know, we were happy with the result on the first album, which was completely self-produced. And we were really stupid for being happy because now that I hear the difference, I'm like, oh wow, I should
Yeah.
have used the producer on the first one. But anyway, we weren't planning on doing it until I spoke to my press agent in Brazil. He asked me who was going to produce the album. I said I was, and he's like, well, have you thought of Dennis Ward? And now it's funny you mentioned Gus G because that's how I met Dennis. I met
Uh-huh.
him earlier in, was it 2019? I think it was 2019 at NAMM. Maybe it was 2018, 2019, I think.
Hmm.
Anyway, Dennis was in Los Angeles for NAMM with to play with Gus, and I am good friends with Gus. And I was after the show, we went out to dinner or whatever, and I met Dennis like backstage. And and the day before, we met like at NAMM, just at the bar, you know, like just fucking around. At first, I didn't even recognize him because he had short hair. And then the next day, I saw him on stage with Gus. And I'm like, oh shit, that was Dennis Ward. Okay,
Hmm.
so I kind of met him like that. And but this was, I don't know, 6 months before, or 7 months before my press guy ever brought up his name. You know, he's like, he's like, why don't you contact Dennis Ward? I'm like, you know, now that you mention, I met him earlier this year, so why not? You know.
Hmm.
And I showed him a Facebook message. I sent him the demos. At that point, I had all the songs already and demoed and all that. And he really liked it. And he's like, dude, let's do it, you know. And the thing too is, this is only, I think, the second or third time that he's doing this, but we're doing online production. You know,
Hmm.
he literally sits there on FaceTime using this thing called the what's the name of it? Audio movers,
Okay.
where he hears it out in his studio in high quality as if he was sitting with us, you know.
Hmm.
So he produces us remotely. That's one of the most badass things I've ever seen, and I bet that is the future of production, by the way.
Great.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, that's how it happened. I met him through Gus, and then he was suggested, he liked it, and then here we are, man. He's making a ridiculous difference. Like it's 200% better because of him. I can't even explain how big of an impact he's had on this.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. What about you? You're still with Nuclear Blast, are you? So this new album's going to come out through them?
Yeah, Nuclear
Yeah.
Blast. We've been with them since 2018. I want to say 2018, and Yeah, they're doing a great job, and we're looking forward to the new album with them.
From what I hear, Marcus contacts a band when he wants to sign them, as opposed to, I mean, God knows how many demos and pleas via social media he must get for bands to be signed to the label. But can you tell me about how you met Marcus and the process of, becoming a Nuclear Blast or joining that stable?
First of all, Marcus didn't sign us. He works with us right now. He's our day-to-day guy. But Jaap is actually signed us.
Okay.
And the way it happened was when we started the band. Well, first of all, when we started the band, we didn't really want to have a label. We were. I mean, we would if it was Nuclear Blast. That's kind of how we were thinking. If it's Nuclear Blast, if it's something to that effect, yeah, we'll sign. But otherwise, we're just gonna do it all on our own, which was a terrible thing to think about doing. I'm glad we didn't. But we our old singer Christian, he was on Nuclear Blast with his old band Twilight Force. And he had the contact with Marcus, and he mentioned Marcus might have been interested in us. And we talked, but that never went anywhere. One day, I myself sent an email to Jaap, just, kind of checking in, being like, hey, man, how's it going? It's been a while. And I was like, hey, so I have this new project. We're going to do an EP. We're going to release an EP, and I'd love to show you, what do you think of that? To see what you think of that. And he loved it. It was basically that. I basically submitted, and he liked it, and we started negotiating. Then at that point, Marcus came in and all that. But Jaap was the guy that actually signed us. Now I don't know how he worked with other bands, honestly. With us, we kind of cheated our way in because we already knew them.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that. Like, it makes sense because you need. I don't think even so-called professional musicians know what it takes to be a professional musician. Now, I'm not saying I am either, because I'm not. I'm just a bar guy. I've got my Music Man basses here and my Gallian Kruger amp. I put it into the back of my Jeep and I turn up to a club and I play, that sort of thing. But when you're doing what you do, you need to have pretty much the whole thing sorted, and you pretty much just give. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here. This is my perception of it. You more or less give the finished product to the label, and they help market you, and they've got the connections and the contacts and the whole thing to kind of make that side of things happen. So if you were going to give advice, and I'm sure you cop this question a lot, if you were going to give advice to an unsigned artist, like a student of yours who's, say, 24 years of age and absolutely has it in their head that there's no other outcome for them except for making it as a professional musician, just like you have, what would you say to them?
Oh, man. Well, it's changing all the time. You know what I mean? Like what worked 10 years ago doesn't work right now anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, but the one thing that to me stays consistent in any area is always try to operate at 100% of productivity. So whatever that means to you. So if you're a guitar player, well, you can be a really good player, but you can also look really good, or you can also not care what you look like. But then the next guy that's good, but he also looks good, then that guy is gonna take the gig from you. Because his company is operating is running hotter than yours. You know what I mean? He's got it's like, oh, I'm a really good guitar player, and that guy is a really good guitar player, but he also looks good and he can sing. You know what I mean? So to stay competitive, you gotta know your shit. You gotta be also like this is new. Okay, now this is something that like 10 years ago I wouldn't say, but now I do. I would really strongly suggest that any musician becomes really familiar with music theory, because once you know music theory, you realize that it's not really theory. It's just naming things. You know what I mean? But it's really good to know what you're playing, simply because nowadays everyone does. Like when I was 20. if you went to music college, those are bragging rights. You know what I mean? You could say that. You could say, "Hey, I'm a studied musician. I'm a trained musician. I went to music college." Nowadays, every kid goes to music college, and if they don't, they just Google it. You know.
Yeah.
So the competition is getting younger. Any 15-year-old right now can shred. Anyone, any 15-year-old. You give him a guitar, he'll play some Ingve for you. So the competition is getting younger, smarter, and better looking. You know what I mean? So so it's that. You know what I mean? Well, see, I always use the long hair as an example because I don't know that I would have long hair if I wasn't a professional musician. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's the look I would choose for me. But with long hair, I'll get a job with a band that doesn't want a guy with short hair. And if there's a gig that doesn't want someone with long hair, I never heard of that. You know, in any style, even pop or jazz, you can just put your hair in a ponytail. You know, so whereas there's metal bands, like older metal bands, where the first requirement is long hair. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's an example of course, of what I'm talking about. The other one is being in shape. You know, yeah, it's kind of shallow to think like that, but yeah, you know, if you're a little bit chubby, if you don't, you know, if your clothes don't really look that good on you and you play really good, the other guy that's in shape and also plays really good, well, he's gonna get the gig. You know, so you always gonna be the guy getting the gig. That's how I see it.
Yeah, sage words and great advice for people out there. I think there's this idea, and Joe Rogan was talking about that when, I don't know what women's magazine it was, but they had these plus size women. That's the politically correct way of describing it, I think, isn't it? On the front cover, and they're trying to normalize basically obesity. That's the way I see it, my opinion.
Yep, I
And
saw that too.
yeah, and it's wrong to me because having your health, as someone, I mean, I've lived with something called colitis, which is similar to Crohn's disease. I get by in the day to day. I'm not saying I have a tough life or anything like that. I certainly don't. But it gives me a bit of a glimpse into what not having your health would probably feel like. And I can tell you, it's fucking shit. Like, if you've got your health, I think you have an obligation to yourself and to your family. And I've got kids, so that's how it comes full circle for me. To be the best person you can be, which means being switched on and being available for them. And you can't be that way if, and it's, man, God, you know, I haven't done anywhere near the amount of gigs that you've done or what have you. But yeah, we turn up to gigs and we have a few beers and then we go home, that sort of thing. But if you're doing it that often and if you're trying to make it, you got to think those beers are going to put on the calories. And it's also going to dull your senses as well, which might lead to other harder things a bit later on. And I know that happens. I'm not going to point to any specific examples, but you look at some of these legacy acts, and a lot of these guys they're out of shape, man. Just because they're over 50 doesn't mean they don't have a like. Look at George Lynch, for example. Look how fit he is. He's probably fitter now than what he was when he was in his 30s.
Same with Phil Collins from Def Leppard.
Oh, Phil's fantastic, isn't he? Yeah, he's a great guy too. Yeah. I mean, yeah, look at him, man. I mean, he seriously looks like he's 19 or something. Like,
Yeah.
he's ridiculous, Phil. But I think I asked him when I spoke to him. I don't know whether I asked him or whether I read it in his book anyway. But he's just fastidious in his preparation. But mate, so are you. So I mean, you've got the six pack and the muscles and stuff. And I think people sort of think
But I
that's.
do now, you know what I mean? I was really, really out of shape for most of my life. But I always thought that. I was always like, man, I need to get in shape because that's how you gotta get gigs, you know. I just couldn't for the longest time because I was a fat, drunken idiot. but,
Yeah.
but once I was able to lose weight, things changed. You know, it just proved me that. That's why that's a good advice. But then again, you know, if you just look great, but then you play like shit, well, that doesn't help either. You know,
Yeah,
that's
it's got to
why
be
I
the
always
package.
say
Yeah.
you gotta be the whole package. You gotta have everything.
Just something too. I read on your social media you posted not long ago. It might have been around New Year's, but you did a great post. I thought where you said to people, "Wake up, you silly alcoholic fucks," Get ready, Yeah, do you remember
That
that
sounds
one?
like
Yeah.
something I would say. Yeah.
Something like that. You put a picture of some guy who couldn't get out of bed or what have you, and you said, "Time to stop
Oh
drinking."
yeah, like hey, I need a wake up call. Yeah, you're an
Spot on.
alcoholic piece of shit.
Yeah, that's the one. But I think it was that post or was another one, and you said, and I'm doing this not verbatim. I'm just quoting here. What I think you said, but it was along the lines of when you gave up alcohol and you started focusing on the things you just mentioned. Your your rise to where you are now started not even 6 months after that. It happened that quickly.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. See, that post about the guitar technique and all,
Hmm.
man, that is very pronounced. That is and I listened to like my first album ever. It's from 2006. It's from a band called Celador,
Hmm.
and I thought of myself as a really good guitarist back in those days. You know what I mean? And I listen to that now, and oh my god, it's horrible. It's like it's really sloppy, like compared to what I play like now. You know what I mean? And I mean it was. And honestly, it wasn't just me. I see guitar players do that all the time when they play scales and arpeggios or whatever, and they stick to those patterns, like repeating the same three notes or whatever. But the picking isn't there. They're just basically moving both hands really fast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, oh man, listening to this album, there's a lot of that. I'm like, wow, when I play that same shit right now, it's so much more pronounced. The picking is so much better. You know,
Hmm.
um, honestly, that awareness started with the sobriety for sure.
But you're right. I can't remember what you said exactly, but it was along the lines of as soon as you basically made the decision to turn your life around and you gave up alcohol on New Year's Eve 2011, that was the last time. Going into 2012, it all just happened for you so quickly. So it was like a light switch got flicked on, and your life just started from that moment. And I think that'd be true for a lot of people. And the reason I'm talking about this, I'll just give you some context, is because I don't know a lot of people personally. God knows I don't get out anymore these days. I mainly speak to people like this. But I think a lot of people have fallen into the trap of drinking too much alcohol and smoking too much weed and eating too many frozen pizzas and this sort of shit, going to McDonald's through the pandemic. And we are going to come out of this at some point. And you don't want this thing to be the Achilles heel. It's, this however long it takes. There's so many gifted guitarists out there that are coming through in the next generation. I just want them to sort of, whether or not they listen to this conversation or otherwise, but the energy of the conversation, put it out there into the universe, be a bit ethereal for a moment, I will. But for them to hear that you actually can't drink, you can't fuck around, excuse my language. You just can't do it. If you've got a goal and you want to go after it, you've literally got to follow your example. Otherwise, it probably won't happen.
That's true. That's very true.
you know. And I liked what you said too, because I remember the name of the podcast that I listened to last night as I was cutting up some veggies for the kids, but it was the Riff Hard podcast, and I think they did a
Oh
reasonable.
yeah, it's IO's podcast.
Yeah, it was pretty, like, they asked some intelligent questions, and I thought you answered them really well. So that's, but I remembered you did another post where you said, and I'm quoting here verbatim, this is you typed this. I often disappoint people when they realize I don't like talking about music or gear. It's getting significantly harder to pretend, but you did such a great job on that podcast. So you can talk about it. There's just not the desire anymore because you're sort of going to another level, do you think?
Well, no. What I meant on the post was specifically at like a party or like, well, so I had just been at a party with when I wrote that post, which was only a couple of days ago. I
Hmm.
went to a birthday party of okay, I won't mention names, but a friend of mine who's in a pretty big death metal band here in Florida. And I went to his birthday, and there was a couple of musicians there. And one of these musicians started trying to talk to me about Ralph. Now,
Okay.
Ralph, okay, for those listening, Ralph Santala, he was a guitar player that guy was my best friend in the world, and
Hmm.
he passed away a couple of years ago.
Hmm.
And I don't like I'm not the biggest fan of talking about him, but I will. I don't mind talking about him. But then this guy starts talking to me about specific solos that he did in songs, and I don't fucking know everything that he did. I'm just friends with him, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like me and Ralph never talked about guitar. He was my buddy, and then this guy's like, dude, he's soloing blah 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 song. Yeah, that's cool, man. On that other song where he does the harmonic and he does the arpeggio, and I have no idea what this guy's talking about. You know what I mean? So, but I'm Ralph's friend. Everyone knows that. So everyone talks about Ralph to me. And at one point, I'm like, yeah, cool, man, cool. And then this guy, I mean, 5 minutes later, he calls me out. He's like, hey, man, why do you keep blowing me off when I talk about Ralph? Like, he straight up told me asked me that to my face.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, dude, it's two things. First of all, man, Ralph, like, I would rather not keep talking about Ralph.
Mhm.
But the other thing is, I don't give a fuck about his work, about his solos and shit. It's not that I don't give a fuck about his work. Of course, I give a fuck about his work, but that's not why we were friends. I didn't sit and listen to Millennium all day with Ralph. We were listening to fucking hip hop and bullshitting around and yelling at chicks. You know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
and
Sounds like Ralph.
on my day-to-day life, I'm that kind of guy. And I tend to like become closer with people like that. That's why Ralph was such a good friend. Like we never talked about guitar or music or anything. It was really rare. We did when it was something like, hey man, there's a project, or hey man, there's a thing here that we can do, or something like that. But other than that, no, man. We were eating burritos and smoking pot. I don't know. So anyway, but like this fact that happens like very often, and people, and I mean, of course, I'm a musician. I can talk about music, but I would rather not. Especially if I'm meeting you at some party and we're just hanging out. I don't want to talk about guitar players or bands or whatever. I want to talk about anything but that. Then of course, when we're working, when we're doing an interview, that's different. I don't know. I'm just maybe I'm weird like that, man. But
No,
and it
that's so
sucks too
true.
because like I have friends. I have a circle of friends outside of music. Like people that have nothing to do with metal or whatever, and it's cool. But then when I hang out with those friends too much, I start missing the metal thing, the musician thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then I hang out with a bunch of long-haired dudes, and all they want to talk about is fucking amplifiers and bands. I like a happy medium sometimes.
Yeah, no, I'm feeling it. I know. I often say, I've done a lot of fill-in work. We're playing covers, so you just know the song and you turn up and play it in the band, and you often don't even know the names of the people you're playing on stage next to. But I always used to judge the band on whether or not we were talking about football scores and the pretty women in the venue, as opposed to which is what I want to talk about, as opposed to whether or not I could hear this or that, or what questions about because I use Music Man basses. Why don't I use this other bass, like a P bass, instead of the Music Man? And I'm like, oh my god, I can't talk to these people. Like, just get your beer, sit down, and we'll talk about the football, the rugby league, or whatever is on. We'll talk about that, but not about like gear and cables and string gauges. And those bands, I've got to be honest, man, those bands, when I did turn up and do some of them, man, it's funny you mentioned that. You mentioned you dealt with what I call a punisher. So this guy's calling you out. You're saying about, blowing him off or his perspective, of course, is that you didn't want to talk about Ralph, and fuck him. You don't have to tell him your reasons for or otherwise, and that's always been my view with some of these other guys too. And I'd do that too. I'd go, look, I'm not talking to anybody. I just retreat into my phone. And I'd find out down the line that I was rude or something.
Oh, dude.
And
so you're probably an introvert like I am.
I am I'm definitely an introvert. This is unusual for me to be. The podcast is a way for me to effectively, look, I love talking to musicians. I truly do, because it's in my heart, this stuff. It's what I think I've been put here to do. But outside of that, man, I'm just playing with the kids, man. I'm just taking them for bike rides and playing golf and this sort of stuff. I'm not doing much else. Or reading books. You know what I'm saying? It's a you know what I mean. You're in your late 30s, man. You get to about 35, man, and you just get tired, you know, and
Yeah.
you just get fed up with it, to be honest with you, and you just retreat into your own world.
And man, the whole music and matter world, at the end of the day, is very taxing. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like everything is so like you need to keep a network, and you need to be nice to this person, that person, and you need to
Oh yeah.
talk to the other person. Like it's just that when it becomes your reality, you don't realize, but you need to step out and be like, okay, fuck all this. Sometimes, and that's like you go play golf with your kids or whatever, because the bands will be there when it comes back.
Mm. Yeah, I just find, look, I've got to tell you, mate, I hardly know anybody who's into metal, and I know even fewer people that are musicians. All of my people around me are just either family, which is 90% of it, or the acquaintances from my old workplace. And
That's
I'm not,
good.
I don't feel lonely or anything like that. I'm not saying, I'm just saying it's a small, compact circle, and it's probably better off that way. Man, I'm the guy when a cafe is full, I'm sitting in the corner by myself, reading the New Yorker or something, because I know it's a bit of a lefty rag, but I do like reading that. Awesome Australian literature. I do like a lot of Australian literature too from the turn of last century. I got taught a lot of that at university, and it sort of stayed with me. But I just find it increasing my knowledge base and making myself a bit more of an interesting person, say in these situations here, to talk with. Does that make sense? Like, I listen to some of these podcasts and they're very mechanical, or the person's got no idea and they're laughing constantly, but it's a nervous laughter. It's not a genuine laughter. I've tried to avoid that since day one. And yeah, I've always tried to avoid that. And like I remember our last conversation, I was sitting outside at university, and it was really good to talk to you the last time actually, because I'd long admired the work you'd done. And I think that's what I'm so grateful for, is that I get to do what I'm doing here, and it gives me so much spiritual fulfillment to talk to musicians like you who are doing it, something that I could never do. It was never just it's not in me to do it. But I can I like talking to you because I know that you're doing it and hearing the stories firsthand. And I think that's the reason why I've transitioned into writing the books that I've just shared with you before that I'm writing.
Yeah,
It's all good fun.
that's cool, man. That's cool.
Awesome, mate. Well, look, thanks for the chat. It's been awesome, as always. And yeah, we'll stay in touch. And look, good luck with everything, mate, until we next catch up.
Awesome. Thank you very much, my friend. Have a great new year.
No worries, mate. You too. Okay, talk to you again.
Take
Cheers.
care.
All right. Bye.
You are listening to the Scars and Guitars. I should say you have been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online, and my name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. Thanks for tuning in. You just heard from the one and only Bill Hudson, the guitarist in far too many bands to mention, but two of them are NorthTale and I Am Morbid. Thanks for listening.